So very good evening class. Today's our topic is Lasswell model of the communications. Very important topics because this model of communication here, the first class that we have started. And in this first class of the models and theories, we will discuss the Lasswell model of the communications. Very important model. So just let's understand this, what models talks about. Okay. So Lasswell model of the communications is basically, it is linear model of communications. What are the questions which is asked from this model, and why this model is important? What was the how this model was developed? What are the components of the model, of this model, and why this model was developed? Each and every questions where we will clear from this models. Okay, very important model, and it is considered one of the first model. Okay, चलिए let's talk about that Lasswell model of communications. Who given, किसने सबसे पहले दिया है ये मॉडल? और ये है हैरोल्ड ड्यूलाइट लैशवेल. ठीक है, सो हैरोल्ड लैशवेल ने अमेरिकन पॉलिटिकल साइंटिस्ट थे, and he states that a convenient way to describe an act of the communication is to answer the questions. Okay, very important, very important. ठीक है, so first thing it is there, who given this Lasswell model of the communication. The full name is that Harold Dwight Lasswell. Okay, or Harold Lasswell, you can say, most where you will see the Harold Lasswell only. Okay, so he was the American political scientist which states that a convenient way to describe an act of communication is to answers the questions. So questions, basically in the form of questions, you just, this is what they try to make us understand. They try to make us the process of communication. What is process of communications? They have tried to make us understand better in a form of questions. Like here you can see that who says what in which channel to whom with what effect, right? In which each of the component you was here asking the question that who is कौन क्या कहता है किस चैनल के माध्यम से और किस इफेक्ट के द्वारा क्या कहता है, राइट? सो दिस इज व्हाट अबाउट इट इज आस्किंग दैट in the form of questions you are understanding the process of communications, right? In the form of questions. So he made us very in the simplistic form to understand the process of communication. See, who is what? The communicator, right? Communicator sends the masses, right? Says what? The masses. In which channel? That is medium. To whom? That is the receiver. And with what effect? That is effect, right? So this is what the 5 components we have to remember. This is 1 2 3 4 5. So if it is asked that how many components where the Harold Lasswell has focused, so you can answer that is 5. Because why this question is important? Because this was unexpected question which came this year, that कि आपका क्वेश्चन पूछा गया था, महात्मा गांधी has been the editor of how many newspapers, right? They had not asked about that which of the following newspaper is of the Mahatma Gandhi. They had asked the numbers. That numbers is sometimes it becomes very important. So you have to also know that there are only 5 components in which Aristotle has described the communications process. Okay, that 5 components are who, says what, in which channel, to whom, and with what effect, right? So this is what the 5 components we have to remember. He stated all this communication process in the form of questions. Okay, what this model talk about? This model is about the process of communications and its functions to society, right? Its functions to society also according to the Lasswell के अनुसार there are 3 functions of the communications, right? Lasswell कहते हैं only there are 3 functions for communications according to me, right? And what are the 3 functions of communication? Communication के 3 function कौन-कौन है? वो है surveillance of the environment, correlations of the components of the society, and the cultural transmissions between the generation to generations. Cultures are transmitted. Okay, he said. And he's also said that correlations of the components, right? Whatever the components of the societies are, they are correlated with each other, right? And also the surveillance of the environment, that he said that media is the watchdog. Media works as a watchdog. So that is what media surveillance the environment. So this is the 3 mainly communications, which is very much important to understand, right? Chaliye. All clear? It is all clear, everybody? जल्दी से बताएंगे so that we can move ahead. Yes, great, very great. Next, Next, it is that, read carefully here, that it is one of the first and most influential model of communications, right? So Lasswell model is considered as one of the first models of the communication का पहला मॉडल समझा जाता है, और सबसे ज्यादा ताकत रखने वाली, द मोस्ट इन्फ्लुएंशियल मॉडल, सबसे ज्यादा अगर इन्फ्लुएंस हुआ कम्युनिकेशन के मॉडल्स का, अगर सबसे इन्फ्लुएंशियल मॉडल की बात करेंगे तो वो है Lasswell model. Okay, so Lasswell model that analyze the communication in terms of the 5 basic questions or 5 components, that is we have discussed. This is what, who says in what channel to whom with what effect, right? Sometimes they can also ask you in the arrange in a sequence order, right? So they will give you all the components, and you have to arrange in a sequence. So you should know it, right? So they can randomly ask the questions that you have to arrange in a sequence. So sequence is very much important. The first, it is started with who, means sender, then what, the masses, right, the content, then that is medium, and that is receiver, and that effect. Okay, so you have to know the sequence, you have to know the order, right? What the components order according to the Lasswell model of the communications. Okay, so these questions refer to the most salient components of the process of communications that we had discussed. This is because this is the most influential model. Okay, the one of the important points here, a linear framework for explaining the communication process through the segmentations, right? So this model is also called a linear model of communications, means what the call the linear model of communications, where one-way communication process it is, where there is no feedback. जहां पे कोई फीडबैक नहीं है उसको हम linear model of communication कहते हैं, जहां पे senders are only allowed to speak. Senders are only allowed to disseminate the informations. Receivers cannot react with the senders. Receivers cannot interact with the senders. That is what the linear model of communications. And this is what the Harold Lasswell is, linear model of communications. After the end of the class, we'll discuss with you all that what the criticism of Lasswell models were, right? And in that we will show you that how this model was criticized in the terms of linear model of communications. Okay, so developed to study the media propaganda of the country's business at that time. So when this model was developed in the 1948, when this model was developed in that time, what was happening? The most of the powerful countries, most of the business, right, they were using media as in propaganda. And in order to use as a media propaganda, they use the Lasswell model of the communication. So this model was basically, the main purpose of this model was to develop the media propaganda, how to brainwash, right? Brainwash कैसे करें लोगों का, target audience को manipulate करें कैसे करें, how to manipulate the target audience, how to brainwash the audiences, how to convince the people, how to persuade the peoples in a very powerful manner, right? So basically this is what the about mass media culture, right? The mass media culture, basically, because he said that 3 functions of the communications. What were the 3 functions of communication according to the Lasswell model? Please discuss with us. जल्दी से बताएंगे in the comment sections, everybody. The 3 functions according to the Lasswell model in the previous slide we had discussed. Everybody, what is that? Yes, that is surveillance. Archana has answered. The second, that is surveillance. Very good. Correlations. Yes, very good. And the last, that is everybody. Yes, that is transmission of the culture. Correlations. Yes, very good. Correlations of the that power societies, components, and the surveillance of the media of environment, right? Very good. Absolutely. Yes, transmissions, cultural generations. Very good. Chaliye. So these 3 functions of the communication according to the Lasswell model, and you can think over that, how that media cultures were that at that time, because in that time, very few countries, very few businessmen having the televisions and the radio. At that time, having the television and radio in the home, that was a very considered as a rich man. Okay, so how they were using that medium to disseminate the informations, they were using the power of the media, and the power of media was only in that time, that this basically on the basis of that mass media culture, so on the basis of that surveillance, that they developed this model to understand the process of communication, how media influences, how media that use the that how sender communicate with us where there is no effect, right? So they make us understand in a very simple form, in equations form, to understand the process of communications. ठीक है? चलिए. So also known as the action model. Sir, but this model could be used to make people aware of the business or media propaganda as well. Yes, exactly. That is I'm asking here, right? I'm elaborating each and everything here, that this model is basically to develop the what? The business, to develop the countries in the terms of what? Media propaganda that they were using. They were creating the propaganda and disseminating the information through the propaganda, right? So basically, in order to make the propaganda, and that we will make, there are a lot of the examples, and I will give you it here in the upcoming slides. So basically understand that also known as action model, linear model, one way of model, that is what only the senders is allowed to communicate with the receivers were not allowed. There were no barriers of the communication, even there is no noise concept, even there is no feedback concept where in this model, right? So this model was basically on the basis of linear model of communications. And you should know, right, this is what, for your sake of the knowledge, it is that the linear model of communications are, can anybody tell what are the linear models? Can you give examples? That first is that we have understood that Lasswell model is the linear model. Another more model, Aristotle model, right? Yes. Another, Shannon and Weaver model. Yes, exactly. Shannon and Weaver model. So we will understand all these three models. So these are, yes, Osgood is not a linear model. Osgood is not a linear model. Osgood is a two-way communication process, because that is circular model of the communication is called. There is a feedback concept. Osgood is not a linear model. Understand? Yes. So this is what, there is no feedback in this model. So we consider it, these three models are linear models. Okay. Or we can also say that it is action model or one-way communication model. Okay. All clear, everybody? जल्दी से बताएंगे so that we can move to the next slide to understand the more concept about it. Yes. Very good. चलिए. All right. Next here, understand in the detail in the components. We again here in the form of table C might be clearly visible. So who these are components 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? Who says what in which channel to whom with what effect, and what its meaning of the component is also described in this table. Who means the communicator or the sender or the source of the message, right? The source of the message, from the where we are getting or receiving the messages, that is what the source of the message. Whom who is sending the message, that is what the sender, right? The communicator who is communicating the message, like for an example, who is communicating? I am the communicating with you all. I am the source of the message. I am the sender and the communicator, right? So who refers to me, right? That is what the control analysis. I am totally here controlling each and everything, right? I want, if I let you to speak, then definitely I will unmute that, right? If I will not let you to speak, I will mute you all, right? So that you will not be allowed to interact with me. I'm totally controlling each and everything here, right? I may disconnect it. I may do anything over on this platform. This is what the control analysis of the sender. Senders can do anything, right? Senders, whatever the masses, like for an example, whatever I will give you the example, you have to understood. You have to understood through that example only. This is what the senders try to speak in that way, that senders is trying persuading the receivers, right? Says what is the content of the message. Like for an example, we have created the content to make you understand better. This is what the content of the message, what message you are delivering to the receivers, right? So content is the king. We say that if you having the content, and the content, if it is powerful, definitely that will impact a lot. And how that, what the communication skills you are using, we will learn the Aristotle model of communications in terms of the sender only. Okay. So says what the content of the message, and that is content analysis. Okay. In which channel Channel is that medium or the media, which media you are targeting the people, right? So media is also important to influence. Like for an example, if you are using the radio, their target audience is different. If you are using the television, their target audience is different, right? So each medium has having its own characteristics and each medium has having its own target audience, right? So basically on the basis of medium and the media, the target audience is decided, right? So target audience is very useful and important component to whom you are persuading, right? You should know about the media. You should know to right to choose the best media, right? Chaliye. So to whom, the main thing is here that to whom you are receiving, that is what the here the receiver of the message and an audience, that is what the target audience. Here the media you are choosing to communicate, and here you are using the target people, target audience, right? Who is your target audience? Whether they are, whether the children it is there, whether the woman is there, whether the old age people is there, or whether which class people are there to listen your programs, to listen your listen your messages, right? So basically that here it is asking or describing or elaborating here about the receivers, right? So next, that is very much important, that is effect. Effect is not here related with the, that is what it effect is not totally over the feedback which is given by the receivers. Feedback is here with what effect, that you are controlling the effect analysis, that what was the effect that we have communicated, right? So this is feedback of the receiver to the sender. We will know more about it, the effect analysis, in the upcoming slide. So this is very much important. Effect is not that receiver's feedback, okay? Effect is that what the senders has communicated. You are you are analyzing here the effect of the senders, right? Chaliye. So next here we will learn more. See, we have discussed all these things very importantly. Effect analysis, see here, only we will discuss the effect analysis that is done before the process starts. प्रोसेस स्टार्ट होने के लिए पहले हम इफेक्ट एनालिसिस करते हैं, ठीक है? एंड इट इज यूज्ड टू प्रिडिक्ट द इफेक्ट ऑफ द मैसेजेस ओवर द टारगेट पॉपुलेशन टू बी एक्सप्लॉइटेड, राइट? सो क्या इफेक्ट होगा हमारे मैसेज का, ठीक है? वो हम, दैट इज व्हाट द इफेक्ट एनालिसिस इट इज डन बिफोर द प्रोसेस, राइट? So before the senders has communicated with the audiences, that is what we analyze the effect, that what would be effect, and here senders predict the effect of the messages over the targeted populations, that what would be our effect, what would be the effect of our messages. That is what that is what the sender is here predicting, okay? So this is what the analysis: control analysis, content analysis, media analysis, audience analysis, effect analysis. These all are 5 analysis that you have to understand in the component form, that is Lasswell model of communications. Okay. Everybody, it is all clear? Yes, great. Very good. Chaliye, all right. There should not be any confusion, okay? Because this is very simple model and you have to know that all the components, you have to remember all the components, okay? Now let's talk about the criticism model of the communications. What is the criticism here in the Lasswell model? We had already discussed, but somehow we'll discuss more in it, right? So the major criticism of the Lasswell model is that it does not include the feedback. Feedback is not by the receiver here, right? Feedback is not by the receiver. Feedback is here on the effect, okay? That here the sender is predicting about the effect here. Effect analysis there. Effect is not on the receivers. That is what effect is done before the process starts. We have discussed in detail about the effect analysis, okay? So it ignores the also the possibility of the noise. There is no the possibility of the noise here, because if the target populations are there, if the technical media things are there, definitely there would be the noise, because where we are using the medium to communicate. And when we are using the medium, whether you talk, whether you use radio or the television or in any means of communications or in any means of medium of communications, that there will be the noise, and there is no possibility of the noise, because this was the first model which was developed in the 1948. There should be the noise concept, because if you go into the 1949, they have concept, right? Yes, there will be the disturbance, there will be the noises. If you go about the 1949 Shannon and Weaver model of communication, there is the concept of noise. But this is what before the Shannon Weaver model, that Lasswell model was developed, and there is no possibility of the noise. So this is what the criticism and you can say the disadvantage. Okay. So noise, there is no barrier of the communications even. Okay. Without feedback, communication process cannot be the fruitful. क्या feedback के बिना communication का process fulfill होगा? Yes or not? Fruitful तभी होगा जब feedback होगा, right? There would be a feedback. That is, feedback is very much important. Unless and until if the feedback component is not in the process of communications, how communication can be the fruitful? Okay, so in order to make the fruitful, there should be one of the most important component, that is feedback, which was seemed to appear in the first, that is Osgood model of communications. Okay, Lasswell model is very linear, that we had discussed a lot, does not consider barrier in the communication process. Okay, so there was barrier की भी बात नहीं की गई है, right? There was no talk on the barriers also, because the barriers is also one of the most important thing which plays in a communication process. कि barrier तो होता ही है, that could be the language barrier, that could be the technical barrier, psychological barrier. Lots of the barrier in the process of communications are arises, but there are here in the Lasswell model of communication, there is no barriers here which has been described in the communication process. Okay, hope this is things is clear everybody. जल्दी से बताएंगे. So in order to create a propaganda using this model, this was basically aims and purpose of this model. Okay, so hope you have understood each and everything here. Chaliye. All right, if there is any questions regarding this model, please ask, because this is very simple model and you have to know about it. Jaldi se. Is there any doubt? If it's clear, then say clear. Yes, it is clear. If you're having the doubt, then please ask the questions. Okay. All right. Each and everything, Sandhya Pandey, it is clear to you. Please be regular. And also, because you have enrolled in our platform, so it's my responsibility to look after you, right? Whether you how the performance you are doing. Okay, कितना आपका performance है, नहीं है, क्यों classes attend नहीं कर रहे हैं, that I have the right to know that why you are not joining the classes, because it is totally that it is on my control, right? So because it's my responsibility to make understand you better all the concepts and move ahead towards the clearing the GRF. Okay, chaliye. All right. So there is no effect as feedback. So effect as feedback, that is here, Anurag. Effect is only here mentioned to understand the or analyze the effect when process, before the process starts. ठीक है, हमने मान लीजिए एग्जाम्पल, आज हम यहाँ पे लेक्चर देने वाले हैं, तो लेक्चर देने से पहले हम ये पता लगा ले कि हमारा जो है मैसेज का कितना पावरफुल इम्पैक्ट होगा. हम ऑडियंस को लेकर पहले ही ये जान लें कि क्या एनालिसिस रहेगी, क्या चीजें हैं. जस्ट लाइक द यू कैन सी दैट इज ओपिनियन पोल. ठीक है, can be considered, everybody, opinion poll can be considered as the effect analysis, everybody, in the Lasswell model of communication. Everybody, opinion poll can be considered as an effect analysis in the Lasswell model of communication. Everybody, which of the poll can be considered, exit poll or the opinion poll, to understand the effect analysis in the Lasswell model of communications? Everybody, in which of the following poll, opinion poll and exit poll, which of the following poll can be considered to understand the effect analysis in the Lasswell model of communications? Everybody answer yes. That is the opinion poll. Okay, opinion poll, that is to understand before the process starts. Abhi election hua nahi hai. No election has been started and want to understand that to which candidate will be. Yes, very good. चलिए, so यही चीजें आपको बताना है कि ओपिनियन पॉल, एग्जिट पॉल, इन दोनों के बीच में अगर बात करेंगे तो ओपिनियन पॉल वुड बी द बेस्ट टू अंडरस्टैंड द इफेक्ट एनालिसिस इन द Lasswell model of communications, because in the effect analysis it is effect is understood before the process starts. Okay, you have to remember. Chaliye, all clear? Anurag, now it is clear? Chaliye, okay.